Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader and tonight we're going to focus and shed more light on the directives of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to the Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdul Ati to be trying and ending the situation, the current situation in the Gaza Strip and the atrocities and the genocide war against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and for the rest of Palestine by the Israeli occupation forces and the Israeli government under the leadership of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. As we did see the statements of Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati for the past few days saying that the liquidation of the Palestinian cause is the red line. It is unacceptable by Egypt, and the main path and the main aim and the main target for now is to be reaching a ceasefire between the Israeli government and the Hamas resistance fighters in mediation efforts by Egypt and Qatar. But we'll be starting straight away with the main top stories that took place for today as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi gave his directives to continue the development of the newly discovered oil wells and include them in the production map, along with the intensifying research and exploration activities to enhance the Egyptian position as a regional energy hub. This came during the ministerial meeting held on Sunday by President al-Sisi with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources Karim Badawi. The meeting tackled the latest developments in the mining sector, as well as the mechanism for attracting and encouraging the new foreign investments in this vital field. The Minister of Petroleum also reviewed the developments in implementing the strategy to transfer Egypt into a regional energy hub, efforts to attract the international companies to invest in oil and gas, as well as the status of repayments of dues to the foreign companies operating in Egypt. Meanwhile, for the second top story for today, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli witnessed on Sunday the launch of the national narrative for the economic development policy supporting growth and development at the governmental headquarters in the new administrative capital. Addressing the inaugural session, Prime Minister Madbouli stressed that the government is focused on maximum use of the Egyptian resources, upgrading the infrastructure to attract more foreign direct investments. The Prime Minister hailed the developments in the private sector, stressing that it should be leading in the coming period. Deputy Prime Minister for the Industrial Development, Minister of Industry and Transportation Kamil al-Wazir also addressed the national narrative for economic development, policies supporting growth and development. Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation Rania al-Mashot, Minister of Finance Ahmed Kujak and the Minister of Investment also addressed the national narrative for economic development. And for the final top story for today, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and the Expatriates, Badr Abdul Ati, released the Egyptian full rejection of the Israeli military operations in the Gaza Strip, plans to displace the Palestinians from their territories, crimes of genocide and the use of starvation as a weapon. During his meeting with Jabril Rajoub, the Secretary of the Central Committee of the Fatah Movement, Foreign Minister Abdul Ati asserted that Israel must accept the ceasefire proposal proposed by the mediators in Egypt and Qatar. The Foreign Minister reviewed the Egyptian efforts to end the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip, in addition to the efforts exerted to ensure the access of the humanitarian aid to the Strip. The Foreign Minister also condemned the illegal Israeli practices in the West Bank, including land confiscation and intimidation campaigns carried out by the Israeli settlers against the Palestinian people. We will be heading to the first report of the Daily Debate for tonight, focusing on the statements of Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati stating that the decision by Israel to be continuing the path of negotiations which could be leading to a ceasefire between the Israeli occupation forces, the Israeli government, and the Palestinian fighters of Hamas, the resistant fighters of Hamas, will be leading to the continued conflict or the closure to the conflict. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati stressed that the ball is now in Israel's court after Hamas accepted a ceasefire proposal brokered by Egypt and Qatar, warning that Israel's response will determine whether the war on Gaza moves towards resolution or escalates further. Abdulati argued that the deal would both guarantee the release of Israeli hostages and secure urgent humanitarian relief for Palestinians. Abdulati emphasized that this is a critical opening that can shift the trajectory of the conflict from an endless cycle of violence to a pathway for de-escalation and healing. At this decisive moment, the responsibility before us is clear. He added that working to secure a ceasefire deal must go on in tandem with providing urgent humanitarian assistance to Palestinians in Gaza. As the United Nations and several of its agencies have confirmed, Gaza is suffering from a man-made famine while thousands of trucks lined up at the border with life-saving supplies blocked by Israeli restrictions. Egypt has kept its side of Rafah crossing open but said Israel's control on the Palestinian side has strangled the flow of aid. He said that Egypt has delivered more than 70% of the total aid entering Gaza, amounting to approximately 550,000 tons of food and medicine, supported by 35,000 volunteers coordinated through the Egyptian Red Crescent. More than 18,500 injured Palestinians and their companions have been transferred to Egyptian hospitals for treatment. Abdulati asserted that simultaneously Egypt is working around the clock to host an international conference to address early recovery and reconstruction in Gaza once a ceasefire is reached. Abdulati said that the three-phased plan aims to rebuild Gaza while ensuring that Palestinians remain in their homeland, casting away any contemplation of displacement. Egypt has pursued a dual track, committing to achieve a ceasefire through mediation efforts and working towards an uninterrupted delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians in Gaza and reconstruction. Egypt will continue to work tirelessly with regional and international partners to support these efforts, guided by unwavering commitment to peace, stability and justice in the Middle East. On the 18th of August, Hamas has accepted the terms of 60-day ceasefire and the prisoner exchange proposal presented by Egypt and Qatar, which was previously agreed to by Israel. The initiative, based on a plan from the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, included guarantees for Gaza's post-war future and the possibility of a permanent truce. Despite this, Israel has pressed ahead with military operations in Gaza City with the intention to occupy it and has continued to block the entry of food, water, fuel, medicine and other life-saving aid. Since October 2023, mediation efforts led by Cairo and Doha have sought to end Israel's genocidal war, which has killed over 64,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 160,000 others, most of them women and children.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Sara, the international relations expert. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Of course, we did see the statements by Foreign Minister Badr Abdullah, stating that the path of Israel nowadays will be leading to more conflict between the Israeli government and the Hamas resistance fighters, and this would mean at the end of it to be liquidating the Palestinian cause, something which is unacceptable by the global opinion and more specifically by Egypt. How do you see the statements?
Okay. Actually, Netanyahu is defying the whole international community, defying international law, international humanitarian law, and the global community in itself. Actually, Hamas is not the issue of Netanyahu, and it's never been the issue of Netanyahu. Netanyahu sees a chance in expanding on the territory, on the Arab territory, and this escalation has never been for the hostage. Just to be as clear as the situation speaks for itself, it's never been related to the hostage or to Hamas as a resistance group. Netanyahu is trying to defy the whole international community for his own interests, either political or let's call it colonial, because he's expanding on Arab land for no reason. Is there Hamas in Lebanon?
No.
Is there Hamas in Yemen? Hamas has never been the issue. It's a resistance group. Let's say they did a mistake or not a mistake. We're talking about occupied lands for decades, and a resistance group in action on the land. So this is not new to Israel. Israel wants to kill the whole idea of Palestine. It's been taking too long. They see, actually, they've been given the power by the U.S., unfortunately. Under two administrations, either Biden or Trump, both haven't done anything in regards to refraining Netanyahu, refraining this kind of government, far right extremist, fanatic government of Israel. Nothing has been done to preserve the long-standing international humanitarian law or international law.
Yes, you mentioned that there is no Hamas in Lebanon, for example. There is no Hamas in other parts of the Arab world, in Syria, for example, as well. This is the expansionist idea or a plan of Israel, which he said himself, in the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is the greater Israel, something that was refuted and denied by the Egyptian Foreign Minister and the rest of the world. How do you see this plan, and how did you see the reception of the global opinion leaders?
The whole world was shocked. Actually, we have Europe on our side. They understand. They have a long standing of the matter. Okay, it's a European issue as well.
Yes.
The state of Israel and its establishment, and there is a long history behind this whole matter.
Yes.
There has been, speaking of Syria, there has been a regime in Syria that didn't allow Israel to put a hand or a finger in Syria. So that's why now there is a huge chance to get into Syria being this week. Okay? I think the whole world is shocked by how international laws are being defied, because this changes the whole system of the world, the whole world order. If we can we call the Rwanda genocide a genocide now, or is it accepted? It should be accepted by now.
Yes.
Accepting the genocide, the starvation games, the forced displacement. We're speaking about huge war crimes. We're talking about if Israel was an African country or an Arab country doing these practices.
Or even Russia.
Or even Russia, exactly. Russia is strong enough to defy all the
Yes.
propaganda and all the. they are in Europe themselves, so they know how the game goes, and they are playing with the U.S. itself. We're talking about two international powers, but Israel being situated in the Middle East, How come all of this is accepted? I think the world is in shock. Europe is doing a great job. The UN is doing a great job. UN agencies have been trying to do a great job. But there has been an Israeli plan to evacuate the lands, kill the idea of Palestine, kill the idea of a state for Palestine. What does this tell the world? It tells the world that these occupied lands for decades are no longer on the agenda, are no longer on, there is no will to establish a Palestinian state. So it's all being very vivid now. What else the world is waiting for Netanyahu to say? He's spoken of Greater Israel. He's spoken of, he's causing problems with Egypt now, talking of gas, threats, speaking of forced displacement as clearly, as crystal clear as it could be.
Yes.
Where is the international community? We've been trying with politics. If it was Libya, we would have seen a NATO strike against it. If it was any other land, we would have seen humanitarian interventions. We have witnessed that in 2011. History is alive and we've witnessed that. Where is that action? Where are the sanctions, like those we've seen on Russia? So I think the world is too silent on huge crimes, war crimes, crimes against international law.
Doctor, you mentioned a very important point, which is the forced displacement for the Palestinians. It is a plan, it is clear that this is the plan since day one for the Israelis to be liquidating the Palestinian cause through the mass evacuation of the Palestinians, firstly from the Gaza Strip. And it was being explained even further by the US President Donald Trump that they should be going, the Palestinians, to Egypt and to Jordan, something that was denied by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi months ago. How do you see the stance of Egypt and Jordan against the US President, against the US administration of Trump and the Israeli government?
How come a sane state, and allow me to use this expression, a sane, sovereign state to accept that, to have, Egypt will never take part in that crime. Egypt as an Arab state, as a Muslim state, as a sovereign state, as a state of long civilization and history, would never accept to take part in this crime. It is a vivid crime. It has been mentioned explicitly by the US and Israel, taking advantage of the weakness of the Arab states. And the only country, what is the problem of Israel with Egypt now? That we have called that a red line. That we have called the displacements. And what is displacement in international humanitarian law, for viewers to take a look on that?
Yes.
It refers to any situations where civilians are obliged or compelled to leave their homes, their lands, because of genocide or conflicts. This is exactly the situation we're facing now. It's exactly this situation, okay? So if that goes like that very calmly, who would agree to that? Who would agree to that? Tomorrow Israel would ask for other lands as well. Tomorrow they will think they have right in other Arab lands, and they are already doing that in Syria, making use of the weakness or failed state as international law calls it. So, talking legally, in a legal framework, in international law, Netanyahu is revolving around the articles of the Geneva Conventions of 49 and 77 and of all the years, okay, long history of international law.
Yes.
And he's trying to revolve around it. We say that forced displacement is a red line and it's against international law, and then he says, okay, they will go according to their own will. So he's playing with statements and playing around international law. So if you make the people face starvation, genocide, massive killing of civilians, children and women, civilians everywhere, expanding on Arab land and doing all these practices, okay? And then you tell me they will leave based on their own will? Now you're forcing people to take a breath of life anywhere else. And there is actually no means to do that unless they get crossed from the Rafah border of Egypt. Egypt has stopped there and said, no, we're not going to take hand in that crime. Against fellow Palestinians, sisters and brothers in Palestine, fellow Arabs, we are not going to accept that. How can I force Europe to accept giving, let's imagine that scenario, to accept giving extra land to Russia, for instance, or to any other state in Europe, for instance, or to force the U.S. To take other people and other refugees of other lands.
Yes.
We witness what Donald Trump is doing today against Americans of second generations of Latins and immigrants. So Egypt has stopped there, and we're being threatened. Our national security is being threatened. It's not an idea of accepting refugees. It's greater and bigger than refugee situation. It's a forced displacement, and they will build other houses, Israeli houses, and they will take the land and kick the people out. Who would agree on that? Who would agree on that? They have to do it through the Rafah border, trying to threat our national security, but we would never accept that. They would have to face Egypt on political basis, and let's hope it doesn't go further.
Yes, Dr. Sara, speaking of the Rafah border crossing, because we have seen over the past couple of weeks a propaganda campaign against Egypt, although Israel is controlling most of the crossings into the Gaza Strip, I think.
7 crossing gates.
6 other than the Rafah border crossing. So they are closing most of them, all of them from both sides, and even on the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing, they are controlling it and they are closing it. And despite all of this, they are blaming Egypt. They are having some paid protests, yes, against the Egyptian embassies and consulates and missions all over the world, that we are to blame for the failure of the humanitarian aid deliveries to be reaching the Palestinians. How did you see those paid campaigns and the response of Egypt?
Okay, let's actually every propaganda campaign has a counter propaganda, and Egypt has done a great work. Egypt as a state and Egyptians, people, academics, scholars, patriots, we have spoken for Egypt. We have been the voice of Egypt. We can all see that on social media. To explain the situation, speaking of Rafah border, the Rafah crossing border, while we have 6 others, let's say, let's explain the situation. Why the humanitarian trucks, the humanitarian aid trucks, enter from Karam Abu Salim crossing border? Because that's a crossing border related to trucks. The whole propaganda around the Rafah crossing border, because it's an individual crossing border. It's for people. So this speaks loudly of the intentions of Netanyahu. And he said it explicitly. If I open the borders, of course, you're forcing people to starve and to leave their homes, bombing them, killing whole families, breaking humanity in a very, very vicious way. So if you open the border from the Israeli side, they will go running to Egypt. They will go running to life.
Yes.
They will go running, and actually human beings running away from starvation and everything. So he's trying to blame Egypt. They will close it, of course, because we don't accept the deportation or the evacuation of Palestine. Any state is government, people, and land. If we take in international law, so this is the factors of any state, the pillars. If we take the people and they take the land, there is no Palestine. There is no cause. There is nothing. We have killed Palestine if we accept that. So yes, there are war crimes and starvation, but it's Israel to be blamed for. It's a human, that's why when the UN mentioned that it's a human-made starvation, yes, because they don't allow the humanitarian, they allow, and again, the cause or the reason they are using is that this humanitarian aid will go to Hamas. We have gone beyond Hamas. Hamas is only a resistance group. We have gone beyond Hamas. You have killed 60,000 people are Hamas?
No.
60,000 civilians.
Mostly women
kids.
and children.
Exactly, all the scenery, all, everything that we see. Do these people have... And unfortunately, they go saying that they let the kids take guns and fight us. Well, actually, they have used all devilish statements to let their plans through, and Egypt will never accept this.
On the other side, you mentioned the importance of the delivery of the humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, and we have seen on the Rafah border crossing the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the French President Emmanuel Macron, the Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa, along with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration Badr Abdulati, and the other ministers from Egypt as well, stating that we are not to blame, we are here and we can see what is happening, and we are allowing the aid to be going from the Egyptian side, but it's not allowed to be entering from the Palestinian side, which is controlled by the Israeli occupation forces. What does this say about, as you mentioned, the counter plan or the counter attacks through the campaigns in the media and the social media? How do you see those efforts by Egypt?
Huge efforts, and it says a lot that we're being in war in mass media and communication, because Israel cannot do more. They cannot do more with Egyptians. That's the last thing they can do. Propagandistic campaigns. That's the end of it. The crossing has 2 gates with a buffering area in the middle. Okay. If they open it from here, we open it from here and we let the trucks in. They said no for security reasons. Okay, we have pressured. Inviting all the international figures, all the ministers, international figures of the UN and Europe to come and see the situation. Because we wouldn't let Israel use their propaganda and reports and their reports to be only seen in Europe. No, no, no. We will show reports as well, and we will show you vivid, live in Rafah itself. Let's go to Rafah and watch. And because if we accept the people, let's accept the people. Let's give them a kiss of humanity, no problem. But where would be the land? Israel would go and run and build their own houses and compounds and everything, and Palestinians will not be there anymore. And then if they enter to Sinai, let's imagine the scenario, and then who knows what will happen, and we will enter into war as well. Our lands will be jeopardized as well. Why from the start? Why accept that? Why accept to evacuate? Where would be international law later on? Would you be able, would the world accept this kind of rudeness, or how do you call it? Accept this kind of seriously, it's crazy what's happening. It's crazy what's happening. Would we accept later on for lands to be jeopardized, humanity to be jeopardized this way? Okay, speaking of opening borders and letting, they don't let humanitarian aid in. We've been speaking of 60 trucks a day. They only accepted 6 or 16. The numbers and the statements are really very ugly.
Through the campaigns that we are conducting, are we getting the results that we need to be raising awareness outside of Egypt, outside of the Middle East, to be showing the world what is happening? Sure, and it shows in the international public opinion has changed a lot. It shows when Macron spoke for himself in his own French media, and he said that I saw what's happening. I saw how the situation is controlled. You have succeeded. But as long as this war and this genocide, let's say it as it is, this genocide is going on, we still didn't achieve what's right, but it's all because of the stallment of Israel
And they don't care about their own people, by the way. We have seen demonstrations in Tel Aviv itself. Any human being would like this war to stop. They don't care. They don't even care about their own people. So we have done huge and great work, and it is war in another way. And we are being in war, and we will see whose word will prevail. We will see the right or wrong.
Yes, Doctor, allow me to be going to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, focusing on the statements by the chief of the UNRWA regarding the role of Egypt in the Gaza Strip, and more specifically for the delivery of the humanitarian aid in summit talks that took place here in Cairo. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Commissioner General of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees UNRWA, Philip Lazzarini, has praised Egypt's role in delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza during talks with Foreign Minister Badr Abdelatty in Cairo on Saturday. The two discussed the worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza and ways to bolster support for Palestinians. Abdelatty said Cairo would continue backing UNRWA by all possible means at a time of mounting political, financial and operational pressures. He condemned the Israeli strikes on the agency's facilities and staff, more than 360 of whom have been killed since the Israeli war on Gaza began, calling them a flagrant breach of international law. He also criticized recent Israeli efforts to shut down UNRWA operations in the occupied territories, describing them as a dangerous precedent that undermines international institutions. He stressed that only the UN General Assembly has the authority to determine the agency's mandate and rejected proposals to transfer its services to other bodies. Meanwhile, Lazzarini warned that UNRWA faced extremely dire financial shortages that had already forced it to suspend some programs, and said humanitarian workers in Gaza were paying a heavy price. He reiterated calls for restrictions on aid agencies in the Strip to be lifted. Abdelatty reiterated Egypt's plan to host an international conference on Gaza's early recovery and reconstruction once a ceasefire is in place. The gathering, to be organized with the Palestinian Authority and the UN, is part of a wider Arab-Islamic plan. He said UNRWA would have an essential role in providing services during the initial recovery phase. The UNRWA chief briefed Abdelatty on Gaza's urgent needs during the relief and early recovery phase, as well as the agency's work under Israeli restrictions. Lazzarini underscored the urgency of a ceasefire, saying Israel had crossed all boundaries and red lines. Abdelatty, for his part, outlined Egypt's efforts to push for a ceasefire and ensure the flow of humanitarian aid, warning also of the dangers posed by expanding Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. The UN formally declared a famine in Gaza on the 22nd of August, the first such designation in the Middle East, warning that 500,000 Palestinians are facing catastrophic levels of hunger.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I'm honored to be having with me in the studio for tonight Dr. Sara, the international relations expert. Dr. Sara, thank you very much once again for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate. We were speaking before the report about the efforts of Egypt in different fields to be protecting the Palestinian cause and to be refuting the statements by the Israeli Prime Minister about the greater Israel, the plan that we have heard of about in the past couple of weeks, and denied by Egypt and the foreign minister of Egypt. But one part of this plan is the annexation of the West Bank. It's not just about the Gaza Strip. How do you see the rest of Palestine as well now?
Okay. Speaking again of the alleged plans of Israel and taking the reason of Hamas, and we have presented this question of where is Hamas in Lebanon and Syria, where is Hamas in the West Bank? Why are you talking about the annexation and seize of control over the West Bank? That's to kill the Palestinian Authority, which is the last hope for a Palestinian state. So it says again a lot about the Israeli plans. And in your report, saying Egypt has stood against these plans, I hope to see the whole world standing against this plan. African Union, the UN is doing massive flying between here and there, but we want to see more sanctions, maybe deployment of international forces to protect the civilians. Why is the world so... Why we always mention that Egypt is standing? Egypt alone is standing against us, doing huge efforts, showing the whole world what's going on. But I hope that it rings a bell for the whole world that this should take a stand as well. A real stand. Speaking of sanctions or deployment, there has been on the plans and on the ceasefire agreements talks of deployments of forces. Even in this point, in this matter, there is devilish Israeli plans. They want to involve the Arabs in another Arab matter, and we don't think there is a very good example of that. We want a sovereign Palestinian state. So speaking of the West Bank is another proof of the Israeli plans. I see that the Israeli plans are not getting the right rejection from the world community.
On the other hand, we have seen Egypt commending the Arab League that they have adopted a resolution put forward by a joint initiative by both Egypt and Saudi Arabia in terms of having more regional security and peace. How do you see the cooperation between Egypt and the rest of the Arab world and Egypt and the Arab League to be having more steps, bigger steps on the ground to be stopping what is happening in Palestine?
To be honest, comes a little bit late, and it's not Egypt to blame in this equation. We have censored the threat long before other Arab states. Arab states' ideology thought that Israel can be contained until Netanyahu showed us his plans and his map of Greater Israel. Oh, okay, now we're not talking about Hamas or resistance groups or containing the Gaza Strip. So you have bigger plans than this. Some Arab states, it took them a little bit long to reach that analysis. But the credit to be given to Egypt in this situation, because we had previous war with Israel in '73, over 4 wars. We have gone into 4 wars for Palestine for the sake of the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian state along the past decades. Maybe the vision was a little bit different because they haven't taken the same discourse of relations with Israel. So I would like to propose that Egypt, yes, has better practices and better policies in regards with dealing with Israel. But now the threat is being censored by all Arab states. This is why we became hand in hand again. We are facing the same threat again, and it takes huge efforts from very powerful Arab states. The Arab League is very powerful, okay? Yes, we don't have the same measures as the UN, to be honest, but we're talking about the Arab League. It's a powerful league that can take steps, and it symbolizes the one stand that the Arabs are standing on now, and maybe that's why we might face some changes in that vicious war in the upcoming weeks, I hope.
We do know that there is a proposal to be reaching a ceasefire between the Israeli government and the Hamas resistance fighters. How do you see the future of ceasefire? When can it be reached? Even though we all know that there is arrogance by the Israeli occupation forces, there is transigence as well by the Israeli occupation forces. How do you see the future of those ceasefire talks, especially with the mediation of Egypt, Qatar and previously the United States?
It becomes stronger now, more powerful now. It shows more pressure on Israel. The integration of Israel, and I've said that earlier, the integration of Israel, Israel has moved with this fanatic government, has moved from talking about its integration in the region and normalization with Arab countries to gaining enemies everywhere, okay? Or losing relations with very powerful Arab states along the way, along this vicious war they are doing. So I think now it shows more, it gives more pressure on Israel. They are going to lose more than gain in this war. It shows containment to Israel, a lot more containment to Israel. It shows one stand, one unified stand against what's happening. And it says a lot about no hope of normalization with Israel, I can tell you this. So it's their loss, not ours.
Does this mean that we should not be focusing on the day after the ceasefire to be reached, the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip? Is it too early to be focusing and looking at that?
Not too early, because that's our ultimate goal. But I'm a little bit worried about the stallment of Israel. That's why I'm happy with the pressure. Because we're talking about huge pressure, but Trump has declared yesterday that he's handling talks with Hamas, and that's why on the very beginning I told you Hamas is not the problem. If they want them out of the scenery, okay, no problem, no problem. But the state of Palestine is to live, because the resistance group, we can have million other resistant groups. If their problem is Hamas, no problem. We can, but give me a Palestinian state. Give me a Palestinian state, and I can work and cooperate with you in taking Hamas out. But don't kill resistance, okay? Don't kill the idea of resistance. That would never be killed, okay? Because it's their land. It's a long-standing cause for huge decades, okay? And don't take the land out from me. That's why I'm very happy with the pressure that being practiced now. This is why maybe when Trump saw that the Arab states are unified again against what's going on, and Iran is not the problem anymore, okay, so what's happening? So this unified situation maybe has pressured Trump to speak to Hamas, and I'm waiting for the results to analyze, actually. And I think Egypt wouldn't have a problem with the name of the resistance group, but give the Palestinians a state. And do not take and expand on the Arab lands. And this is the situation Egypt is taking now. And the Arabs are revolving around this goal again. And I'm very optimistic about the results. Let's hope for the best.
Yes, speaking of results, what about the two-state solution? Everyone is speaking about the prospect of a two-state solution. Even His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, 2 states, Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital, the borders of the 4th of June in 1967. A longer plan for the peace efforts for the future in the Middle East. Do you see this as accessible?
The Palestinian Authority has been denied access to the UN in the States. They have been denied access. If Hamas was the problem, believe me, we would help them in taking Hamas out. Your problem is Hamas? Okay, no problem. But they have a problem with the Palestinian Authority as well. So, and the U.S. itself has denied access to the only legal accepted authority in Palestine. We're talking about the killing of the two-state solution, even though we have Europe on our side in that matter, because it's the only solution. It's the only solution. If the fight on a Palestinian state now and the Palestinian lands, if you want to end the fight, accept it. Like Kosovo, like Southern Sudan. Why Southern Sudan has been given the right to self-determination and we don't give the same right to Palestinians? It happened in 2011. So it's easy for the international community. It's easy if there is a will. Give them the right to self-determination and we can talk about the borders. We can talk about the borders. We can cooperate and we can get an agreement about the borders. But the intentions are not for a two-state solution so
Dr.
far.
Sara Kira, the international relations expert, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you. It's an honor.
The honor is all mine. And this brings us to the end of the program for tonight. However, I will be leaving you with the latest activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The activities that took place for the past week all wrapped up in the upcoming report. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received at Al-Ittihadiyya Palace His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain, in the presence of Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the Prime Minister, along with a number of ministers from both sides and the ambassadors of the two countries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi attended Egypt's celebration of the Prophet's birth, which was held at Al Manara International Conference Center. As part of the celebrations of the Prophet's birth, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi delivered a speech on the blessed occasion. On his official Facebook page, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said, "I extend my congratulations to the noble Egyptian people and Arab and Islamic nations on the occasion of the Prophet's birth." President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi reviewed the performance indicators of the Universal Health Insurance System and the implementation status of the project's second phase.